So, I don't get nervous at many things, but speaking to you gives me so many jitters because I'm with, royalty, education royalty, music royalty, civics royalty. You've kind of rolled all of that into one. You've made civics cool. You've done it in a way that everybody now wants to know who Hamilton is. And as a, you know, social studies teacher who, tried to teach the revolution in all sorts of different ways, when I see my, students and cousins and friends, kids all say, we're stopping everything to watch Hamilton, it's pretty remarkable. So how are you?
I'm good. First of all, that's very kind of you to say. I didn't mean to. I am a musical theater songwriter, and in a history book, I saw a story worth telling that I thought my genre was uniquely suited to tell, and everything else I think has been a sort of interesting byproduct of that. I had the good fortune of great social studies teachers. In fact, I think the first thing I learned about Hamilton was from writing a paper on him in 11th grade for Irving Steinfink. Justice Kagan's brother, Mr. Kagan, was a social studies teacher at my high school. And in fact, their mother was my 5th grade teacher. And so I owe a lot to teachers. It was an 8th grade teacher who sort of nudged me from writing angsty poetry in the back of my 8th grade notebook to writing plays for school, Dr. Rembert Herbert, and I'll always be in his debt for that. I'm good. I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. The last half of this academic school year was figuring out how to do kindergarten via Zoom and supplementing that with our own sort of homeschooling. We'll figure out whatever the next phase is for 1st grade in the fall. But we're good, and knock wood, everyone is healthy and isolated and wearing a mask when we go outside.
Fabulous. Yep, we're all into the mask up.
Yeah.
So we are really grateful, Lin-Manuel, for you joining us in our convention. Our conventions have been about looking at the future, trying to reimagine a better society. And there is no better person to talk to because of lots of things that probably my members don't even know about you. Everybody knows about Hamilton, the musical. Everybody knows about many of the other things you have now done movie-wise, play-wise. But I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking to you about things that educators and nurses and my other members may not know much about. So you taught English at your alma mater, which, by the way, was Hunter College High School, a public high school that's run by both CUNY and the New York City Board of Education. So tell us, what was the most important thing to you about teaching?
Well, I loved teaching. I went to college and I studied film and theater and got a degree in theater. And there's not exactly a clear pathway for what you do for a career when you have a degree in theater. So like I mentioned, I called my 8th grade English teacher, Dr. Rembert Herbert, and said, hey, I'm graduating and moving back to New York with a degree in theater. Are there, and my goal is to write musicals, but no one is paying me to write them anytime soon. Are there substitute teaching opportunities at Hunter? And he said, I'll do you one better. And there was a part-time English position open. And so my first year out of college, I was teaching 7th grade English, where I had just graduated 4 years prior. Nothing can prepare you for the, the light speed way in which your life changes, you know, and our high school goes 7th grade through 12th grade. So there were kids there who remembered me as a senior, and suddenly I have a tie on and I'm Mr. Miranda. Thank goodness I wasn't teaching them, because how on earth could they take me seriously? This former senior, now with a tie on as Mr. Miranda. But I think the biggest thing I learned was, the biggest misconception I had going into teaching was, oh, I've got this theater degree, I've got a lot of experience. Theater and teaching is performing, and I couldn't have been more wrong. I invariably found the more I listened, the less I spoke, the more effective I was as a teacher. And I found that the magic of teaching really is introducing an idea. And I see it more with the games I play with my 2-year-old son. I introduce an idea like it's a balloon, and I throw the ball in the air, and my goal is just to keep the ball in the air and that balloon in the air. And the ideas and insights that the students have are so much more enriching, and they learn so much more from each other than they could learn from me holding forth. And that was the biggest lesson I learned, and I really fell in love with introducing the idea with just the right spin on the ball to make them really kind of take it to the next level and teach each other and challenge each other. English was the perfect sort of medium for me. We read great books, we wrote great poetry, we performed Shakespeare, and it was a dream job. And so I ran for my life, because I saw the version of my life where I'm a very happy English teacher, and I never finish writing In the Heights, and I never finish that play.
Wow.
And so I stepped away from full-time teaching for the far more insecure path of sometimes substitute teacher, and not knowing if someone was going to get sick or have a maternity leave, and if I could pay the rent, but you know, following my dream. And so I have infinite regard for teachers, and it's the second love of my life.
Let me ask you one more teaching question,
Mm-hmm.
which is, if you were teaching freshmen next year or in a few weeks, freshman English, so either 7th, 8th, or 9th graders, what book would you assign?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I can tell you my favorite book from freshman year, because I remember it very well. I had a wonderful freshman year English teacher named Miss Johnson, and the book that changed my life was I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. It's an incredible book. It's an incredible first-person narrative, and I'm the kind of person who, if I fall in love with a book, I go immediately to the library and read everything else that author has ever written. So that was a gateway into to read Maya Angelou's life story is to go down so many tributaries of American history. One of my favorite biographies of hers, because I read I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, devoured it the first or second night. You know, they assign it to you 3 chapters at a time, but I just ate it up because I was just in love with her writing. Read her poetry, read her books, but the one that sticks with me because it still resonates in my life is the biography in which she talks about being a performer. And she toured with the first European production of Porgy and Bess as a soloist dancer. And for her to see how her blackness was received in Europe versus the United States in which she'd grown up, and how they were sort of ambassadors in this way. I think about that all the time, because we have 5 companies of Hamilton, and they are filled with the most incredible creative artists and performers and writers. And I'm always thinking, I've got at least 3 Maya Angelous in this company, and I'm the first line in their resume. I might be a chapter in that actor's biography someday. The opportunity of performing this show at this time, and we take that really seriously. But I always think of it through the prism of Maya Angelou and how the world opened up to her, because her life as a performer opened all these vistas to her.
Tell us a little bit about Ham Online and how you see this civics program using Hamilton, how you see the importance of it to American students.
Absolutely. It's, well, you know, I think Hamilton's greatest fans and Hamilton's greatest critics would agree there's only so much you can fit in a 2.5-hour musical. We just couldn't get it all. I could write 6 musicals about Hamilton, all touching on different parts of his life, and still not get it all. And so the beginning of it is the realization that Hamilton is not a teaching curriculum. Hamilton's a show. It's a musical, but what it does, because it is a compelling story and a compelling narrative, and I think the secret sauce in it is me learning this stuff, speaking of teaching, a chapter ahead of writing it so that it can be in the show. Because I didn't know any of this stuff before I started writing the musical. But what it does do is it is this pinprick of curiosity and about the stories, about the founding era, about the late 1700s, and what Edgeham seeks to do is basically fan that curiosity into a flame. It encourages students to write their own poetry or music or scenes or essays based on other people in history that may have been overlooked, that they haven't learned about necessarily in their curriculum. It has primary sources. One of the things it does is it challenges the students to look to the primary sources and get inspiration from those in the same way that I sort of weave Hamilton quotes and pieces of Hamilton's story into our musical. And so that's the most exciting thing for me, is that it's all promise and it's all just awakening curiosity and finding inspiration in history.
I have a couple more questions. One is because of your passion for Puerto Rico, your family's passion for Puerto Rico. We now represent the largest union in Puerto Rico, the Education Union, AMPR. What made you bring Hamilton to the island, and what made you bring it to the island when you did?
Well, the goal was always to bring it to the island. All I ever really want at the end of the day is for Puerto Rico to be proud of me as someone whose parents are from there but grew up here. I just, I feel like a kid bringing my artwork home from school and being, can you put this on? I just feel like I'm putting my artwork on the refrigerator. And it doesn't feel real to me until I brought it to Puerto Rico. And that was true of In the Heights, and that is certainly true of Hamilton. But Hamilton also came at a time when Puerto Rico was still recovering from Hurricane Maria. And often what gets forgotten in recovery efforts is the arts. And like we said earlier in our conversation, the arts are essential, and the arts are such a part of the culture and the lifeblood of the island. And so we really targeted with Hamilton, let's raise money for artists and artistic organizations because they get forgotten in relief efforts. First, it's life or death stuff. It's getting the lights back on. It's getting water back. But also, there's so many brilliant artists, and they also have something to contribute to the island. And so that was by bringing my art to Puerto Rico, I wanted to help artists on the island and fund their efforts.
And you have, and there's the philanthropy work that the foundation has done has been profound, and it's been long lasting, and you hear it from young adults on the island, which I have heard from them and from their teachers. But it also raises the issue of politics. And what, as you know, your dad, Luis, and I have been making and creating good trouble for probably almost as many years as you've been alive. I feel sometimes like I've roamed with the dinosaurs. But what your father has done has been to ensure that there is a real political presence, because without politics, we don't make change.
Mhm.
And so we've been working on the Latino Victory Fund, and he has persuaded me with and the clout of the AFT to be on that board. And as part of what we wanted to do, because politics and protest, policy, making a better life, all are kind of in the mix together. So I'm honored today to announce that we will be doing a $50,000 contribution to Latino Victory, because we know the live presence of Latinas and Latinos have to be in the Congress.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean,
Thank
it's
you.
listen, we have never had a president that has demonized our people more in the United States, Latinos in the United States, and that doesn't change without a voice in the halls of power. So thank you for contributing to that effort.
You're welcome. Well, thank you for everything that you've done, which leads me to one last question. Now, there's lots of not-for-profit work that you've been involved in, including, getting people to register to vote, and all of that is really, really, really important. But the question becomes, because we can be political at this moment, who do you think should be the next president of the United States? Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I'm voting for Joe. I'm voting for Joe because our democracy is at stake. And, I think we've had 4 years of the perils of someone with no experience at the wheel. And we've just seen, and it's just so much worse than everyone feared. So yeah, I'm voting for Joe in November.
Let me ask you one final question, which is, we're in the middle of 3 crises made worse by this president. The pandemic, finally reckoning with racism, and the economic crisis. People are scared. People want hope. What gives you hope?
What gives me hope is the same thing that kept me teaching is actually these students themselves. If you see these incredible demonstrations where people are handing out sanitizer and wearing masks, the overwhelming majority of which are peaceful, it's these kids are leading the way. And it's the same insight I had when I walked into a classroom thinking I had to perform for them, and I go, oh no, I'm going to learn so much more from them than they're going to learn from me. My job is just to keep the ball in the air and to have their backs. And I think that's a lot of what I'm doing now, and what gives me hope is listening. And because of the pandemic, and because nothing is business as usual in this moment, I think we're seeing a real reimagining of what the world can be. It won't be easy to get there, but these students are the ones that are inspiring me every day, and they give me hope.
So thank you so much, Lin-Manuel. Thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for everything you will done. Thank you for everything you've done, and thank you for everything you will do. And thank you for sharing some time with us.
Yeah, well, thank you to all your members, and thank you to, listen, we talk about essential workers a lot, but teachers are superheroes on superheroes on superheroes, and you're routinely asked to do the impossible, and it shouldn't be this hard. But as a parent, as a teacher, I'm just enormously grateful, and it's great to get this moment to say thank you to each of you.
Fabulous. Be safe.
Thank you. You too.